I was 73 years old and felt exhausted just walking to the kitchen. I hadn't done anything out of the ordinary that day, nor had I pushed myself harder than usual. I only wanted to make myself a cup of tea, but as soon as I took the first steps, my body felt as heavy as if I'd climbed a mountain. My knees creaked, my ankles ached, and my back felt as if it had been bearing an invisible load for years. That tiredness wasn't from a bad night's sleep. It was a different kind of exhaustion, deeper, more silent. One that stays with you all day and doesn't go away, not even after resting. And the worst part is that over time, it becomes part of your routine. You learn to live with it, to move more slowly, to sit down more often, to say, "I'm not up for this anymore," more frequently than you'd like. Joint pain had become my shadow. I felt it in my fingers when trying to open a jar, in my shoulders when putting on my coat, in my hip when rising from the sofa. Nothing seemed serious at first, but over the years, those little aches turned into a constant. And although I accepted it as part of aging, a part of me refused to resign itself. I tried everything: massages, ointments, medications, outrageously expensive supplements that promised miracles. Some provided a little relief, others did nothing. Until one day, by chance, I heard about a vitamin. A common, inexpensive vitamin that supposedly helped with inflammation and boosted energy. I didn't give it much importance at first. How could something so simple make a difference? But after so many failed attempts, I decided to give it a try. After all, I had nothing to lose. What happened over the next 7 days completely changed the way I viewed my body, health, and aging. In this video, I'm going to tell you which vitamin it was, how it works in your body, why it can help you feel stronger and in less pain, and how to integrate it easily into your daily routine. You don't need to spend a fortune, follow strange diets, or rely on pharmacy pills forever. Sometimes, the simplest things are the most effective. So stay until the end, because this information might be exactly what you, or someone you care about, needed. And before continuing, tell me in the comments, how old are you, and from which country are you watching me? I'd love to know. As the years pass, the body begins to send signals. At first they're subtle, almost imperceptible. A creak when bending down, a twinge in the back after standing for too long, or that stiffness in the hands upon waking. But little by little, those signals become part of everyday life. And one day, without realizing it, you find that moving hurts. But why? What's happening inside us? As we age, our joints, those silent hinges that let us move, begin to wear down. The main cause is the natural loss of collagen, a protein that acts as a kind of cushion between bones. When there's less collagen, that protection disappears, and bones start rubbing against each other. That friction is what we feel as pain, stiffness, and inflammation. And it's not just collagen. With age, the body also produces less synovial fluid, a kind of natural lubricant that keeps joints smooth. Without that lubrication, movement becomes more difficult and painful, especially in the morning when the body has been immobile for hours. This is called morning stiffness, and many people experience it every day when trying to get out of bed. Moreover, our immune system becomes more reactive with the years, which means that small injuries or overloads trigger a more intense inflammatory response. That chronic inflammation settles in the joints and worsens the discomfort. Sometimes it's visible, like swollen fingers, and other times it's there, invisible but constant, robbing us of energy. But the pain doesn't stay only in the body. Over time, it also affects the mind. The constant feeling of discomfort breeds irritability, fatigue, and in many cases, sadness. It limits you. It makes you think twice before going for a walk, bending over, doing the things that used to be normal. It even makes you avoid seeing other people for fear of not keeping up with them. Living with pain becomes an invisible burden. And the worst part is that, because nobody sees it, many don't understand it. They tell you, it's normal, it's your age, as if that were consolation, as if resignation were the only option. When feeling that daily pain, the first thing we usually do is look for quick fixes. Paracetamol or ibuprofen become constant companions. Pharmacy creams fill the bathroom cabinet. And of course, exercise. Everyone says you have to move, but when it hurts just to walk, the idea of exercising doesn't sound so logical, and that's how a vicious circle begins. You try one thing, it doesn't work. You try another, still nothing. And you end up with a collection of remedies that only mask the symptom, but don't solve the root problem. And the most frustrating thing is that nobody seems to give you a clear answer or a path that really works. But what almost nobody tells you is that in many cases, the body doesn't need complicated things to heal. Sometimes, all it needs is to recover what it has lost. Simple, essential nutrients that allow it to function as before. One of those nutrients, which very few doctors mention, is precisely the one I'll talk about next. The energy that was lost. Why do you feel so tired all the time? There's a phrase many older people repeat with resignation. I just don't have the same energy I used to. And yes, the body changes with the years, but feeling tired all the time, without motivation, without strength, that shouldn't be a natural part of aging. The problem is we've normalized it. It's thought logical to feel drained after any activity, that it's normal to need 2 naps a day, that waking up more tired than when you went to bed is natural. But no. Feeling constantly without energy isn't an inevitable sentence. It's a sign that something isn't working properly inside us. So what changes in the body after 60? One of the main factors is metabolism. That internal engine that converts food into energy slows down. The body no longer processes what we eat the same way, and even if we keep eating the same as always, we absorb much less. Cells don't receive the nutrients they need, and as a result, they operate at half power. Additionally, hormone levels drop. Both men and women experience a significant decrease in key hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and others related to overall well-being. These hormones not only regulate energy, but also influence mood, muscle strength, and mental clarity. And here comes a protagonist that deserves more attention than it's given: vitamin D. Yes, that vitamin we associate with sunlight and bones, but vitamin D does much more. It regulates the immune system, influences hormone levels, participates in cellular energy production, and directly affects mood. After a certain age, the body loses efficiency in absorbing it, even with sun exposure. And that deficiency, silent but common, translates into fatigue, muscle weakness, and a constant feeling of apathy. The result of all this is that we begin to feel as if we have a battery that never fully charges. And you notice it in everyday life. You could once walk for an hour without problem. Now climbing a few stairs leaves you breathless. Before, you did the shopping, cooked, and still had energy to chat. Today, after any activity, you just want to sit or lie down. And of course, emotionally, this tiredness also weighs on you. It makes you feel unproductive. It makes you doubt yourself. It makes you think, I'm not what I used to be. And the worst part is that often we accept it without questioning, believing it's simply part of getting older. But it's not. The good news is that there are ways to recover that energy, to feel light in your movements again, to wake up in the morning with enthusiasm, not complaints. And one of the simplest, most effective, and least expensive keys can be something as basic as a vitamin. A vitamin that, when taken correctly, can restore vitality to your cells, strength to your muscles, and enthusiasm to your days. The search for relief, what I tried and what didn't work. When pain and tiredness become part of your routine, you do whatever it takes to feel better. You begin searching online, asking friends, listening to well-meaning advice, visiting doctors, trying everything that promises relief. And at first you fill with hope. You think, maybe this time it will work. I went through all that. And if you're watching this video, you probably did too. I tried prescription medications, anti-inflammatories that promised to take away knee, back, and hand pain. Initially they seemed to help, but soon my body got used to them, and the pain returned. Only now it was accompanied by ankle swelling, stomach discomfort, and even heavier fatigue. I'd take one pill for the pain and another to counteract side effects, a never-ending cycle. Then came the creams, some warming, others cooling, others with ingredients I couldn't even pronounce. Applying them gave a brief relief, a kind of temporary deception. But after an hour, the pain was still there. And like many older people, I ended up with a bathroom full of tubes and bottles that only served to empty my wallet. Next were the pricey supplements, imported capsules, miracle powders, products with hard-to-say names and promises too pretty to be true. Some cost more than my monthly pension, and I took them anyway, because you believe maybe that's the solution. But after weeks, or in some cases months, of waiting for results, the reality was the same. The pain didn't go away. The energy didn't return. And with each failed attempt came more frustration. Because it wasn't just the money spent. It was the hope broken each time. The illusion of waking up one day without that stiffness in my legs, that burning in my fingers, that weight on my eyelids. Every product that failed felt like a little warning, a reminder that I still hadn't found the way out. Some treatments even caused unexpected side effects. Nausea after meals, bloating that prevented sleep, or drowsiness that knocked me out by mid-afternoon. I recall one anti-inflammatory that gave me such severe stomach discomfort I had to stop it in less than a week. Deep down, I felt deceived, not only by the products, but by the sense that nobody had a real solution. Everything seemed like patches, something to endure but not to improve. And worst of all, in the midst of that search, I began to doubt myself, to think maybe it was me. The problem was my age, that this was how it would be from now on. But it wasn't me. It was the approach. We were treating symptoms without understanding the cause, applying external fixes to a problem that started inside the body. And it wasn't until I realized that I began to look in a different direction. That's when I discovered that sometimes the most effective solution isn't the most expensive or the most modern. Sometimes it's something that has always been there, but nobody explained how to use it properly. And that's exactly what I want to talk about in the next part. The accidental discovery, the forgotten vitamin. Sometimes solutions don't arrive when you search desperately. They come when you least expect it, in a casual moment, almost like a whisper you could have ignored. That's how I found what would change my relationship with pain and with energy. I remember it was an ordinary afternoon. I was at my old friend George's house. He's in his 70s, just like me. We'd gathered to have coffee and complain a bit, like we usually do, about how tired we'd been feeling lately. I told him I'd stopped my walks because the pain in my knees was unbearable, that I could no longer open jars without feeling my fingers betray me, that my whole body seemed rusted. I also told him how drained I felt upon waking, as if I hadn't slept at all. Then George looked at me with that calm that experience brings and said, "Have you tried vitamin E?" I furrowed my brow. Vitamin E? Of course I'd heard of it. It's always been mentioned for skin and hair, superficial things. I never imagined it could have anything to do with joints or energy. So I asked, "And what does it do exactly?" He, in his typically measured way, explained that he'd started taking it on the recommendation of a naturopath. The doctor told him this vitamin helped reduce inflammation, improve circulation, strengthen muscles, and even balance the immune system. My first reaction was skepticism. I won't lie. After so many useless products, broken promises, and wasted money, how could I believe that a simple and cheap vitamin could make a real difference? I thought it was just another story, another fleeting illusion. But George isn't the type to exaggerate. In fact, he rarely recommends anything. And he told me that after 1 week of taking vitamin E, he noticed his hands no longer felt so stiff in the mornings, that he could button his shirt without pain, that he even felt more motivated to go for walks. "It's not magic," he said, but I did feel a change. That night, I couldn't get his words out of my head, so I did my research. I looked up studies, read articles, and even found some medical publications discussing vitamin E's role in the inflammatory process, in the nervous system, and in cellular energy production. What surprised me most wasn't just everything this vitamin did, but how overlooked it was. Almost nobody talked about it. Most conventional doctors didn't mention it, except in very specific cases. Yet there it was, with real, demonstrated benefits. And on top of that, easy to find and inexpensive. After so much frustration, I said to myself, what do I have to lose by trying? The next day, I went to the pharmacy. I bought a bottle of natural vitamin E soft gels. It didn't cost a fraction of what I'd spent on previous supplements. I got home, took the first soft gel without much expectation, almost as an act of resignation. Another one to the list, I thought. But what happened in the days that followed left me speechless. Day 1 to day 7, what I felt taking it. The first thing I want to say is that I expected nothing. After so many disappointments, I didn't have a shred of hope. I took that vitamin E capsule like someone crossing their fingers, knowing probably nothing would happen. But things did happen, small at first, but so clear they couldn't be coincidence. Day 1. Nothing spectacular. I took the capsule after breakfast, the same routine, getting up with effort, taking the first steps as if my legs were made of stone, having my coffee feeling beaten down by fatigue. But I noticed a slight difference. Not so much physical, more of a sensation, as if my body were less tense, less heavy. Maybe it was just the excitement of trying something new. I thought, don't get your hopes up. Day 2. That morning felt odd. I woke up before my alarm clock, which is rare for me, and I didn't feel that pressure in my knees forcing me to sit on the edge of the bed before standing. I got up in one motion, almost by inertia, and only when I was walking to the kitchen did I realize I hadn't had to grab the mattress edge. Could it be a good day? I asked myself. But something inside me already suspected it wasn't mere coincidence. Day 3. It hit me when I tied my shoes. My fingers didn't grind, my wrists didn't creak. That simple, mundane task that once felt torturous I did without needing to pause and catch my breath. I looked at my hands. They weren't swollen. They didn't hurt. It was impossible not to notice something was changing. And best of all, by midday, I had energy. Not the artificial euphoria some medications give. No, it was a calm, steady energy. I didn't feel drained. Day 4. I decided to push further. I went down to the park with my cane just in case. I walked a bit longer than usual. The ground was damp from the previous day's rain, but that didn't stop me. What struck me was that, for the first time in ages, I didn't fear stumbling. I moved with more confidence, as if my legs responded faster, as if my entire body were more awake. I climbed my home stairs with only one pause. I laughed out loud. I couldn't believe it. Day 5. I slept deeply. That day I woke up without back pain. I repeat, without back pain. Something that hadn't happened in years. My body was more agile, more willing. That day I didn't need the cane. I carried it out of habit, yes, but more for peace of mind than real necessity. Day 6. I did something I hadn't done in months. I cooked standing up for more than an hour without sitting down once. It wasn't a complicated recipe, but the point wasn't the food. It was that I could do it. And at the end of the day, I didn't collapse onto the sofa as usual. I wanted to read, to do something else. Day 7. I knew it when I woke up. My body rose with lightness. No creaks, no cloud of constant fatigue. I walked around the house as I used to. I opened the window, took a deep breath, and felt that something had truly changed. It wasn't magic. Not all the pain vanished, but there was something new, a sense of control, that my body was beginning to respond to me again. That was the first week, and it was enough to know this wasn't coincidence. For the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful, and it all started with a vitamin that nobody had recommended to me before. What vitamin is this? Name, function, and real benefits. Now's the time to tell you what changed my life in just 7 days. It wasn't an expensive drug. It wasn't a complicated treatment. It was a vitamin you probably have at home without knowing how powerful it can be. It's called vitamin E. Yes, vitamin E. It sounds simple, doesn't it? You might even think it's too common to do something so important. But the truth is that this vitamin is one of the most underestimated by older adults. And yet, it's one of the most essential for those of us suffering from joint pain, constant fatigue, and a feeling of accelerated aging. So what does it do exactly in the body? Vitamin E is a natural antioxidant, which means it fights the damage cells accumulate over the years. That damage, known as oxidative stress, is one of the main culprits behind joint inflammation, muscle deterioration, and inexplicable fatigue. As we age, the body produces more free radicals, small harmful molecules that gradually damage tissues. Vitamin E acts like a shield. It blocks and neutralizes them, protecting muscle, nerve, and bone cells. It's as if it helps the body resist the passage of time from within. But that's not all. Vitamin E also improves circulation, meaning more oxygen and nutrients reach muscles and joints. That translates into more energy, less stiffness, and greater mobility. It also participates in red blood cell formation and supports the immune system, fundamental for staying strong at any age. And how does it help joints specifically? Research has shown that vitamin E reduces the chronic inflammation associated with conditions like osteoarthritis, cartilage wear, and lower back pain. Studies in older adults have demonstrated that those taking regular vitamin E supplements experience less pain, reduced morning stiffness, and report improved physical quality of life. A study published by Boston University found that older individuals deficient in vitamin E had higher inflammation levels and greater physical impairment compared to those with normal or high levels. Another study conducted in Germany revealed that arthritis patients who took vitamin E for 6 weeks saw a significant decrease in pain and an improvement in mobility. There's more. In the nervous system, vitamin E protects brain and nerve cells, helping preserve memory, improve mood, and reduce mental fatigue. It's not just about feeling better physically, but about recovering that mental clarity that sometimes seems to fade with age. Perhaps the most striking thing is that you don't need huge doses or complex treatments. One soft gel a day, at the right dosage, can make a profound difference in how you feel every day. It's not magic, it's science. It's well understood nutrition. And the best part, it's accessible. It doesn't cost a fortune, it doesn't require a prescription, and it won't leave you with the side effects of many drugs that only mask symptoms without resolving anything. Now you know the name. But this is just the beginning. In the next part, I'll tell you exactly how to take it, what you need to consider, and how to maximize its effects even more. Because yes, there are keys to getting the most out of it. Why is nobody interested in you knowing this? After experiencing in my own body what this vitamin can do, I asked myself a question that wouldn't leave me in peace for several days. Why had nobody ever told me about this before? I visited doctors, therapists, rheumatology specialists. They ran tests, prescribed pills, offered expensive, complex treatments. But not one of them mentioned vitamin E, not once. And do you know why? Because it doesn't make money. It's that simple. A cheap, natural vitamin, unpatented and available without prescription, does not generate the profits the medical industry thrives on. There's no big laboratory running ad campaigns, no sales reps pushing it in hospitals, and it doesn't appear in the glossy brochures in waiting rooms. The simplest, most accessible, most effective solutions are also the most ignored. I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying doctors want us sick. But in a system driven by commercial interests, the most natural things often fall off the radar. What can't be sold at a high margin simply isn't promoted. I myself spent years blindly trusting every medication I was prescribed, even though I noticed I felt more tired, more swollen, more dependent. No one spoke to me about alternatives. No one asked about my eating habits or my vitamin levels. Everything was solved with a new pill, and when that didn't work, an even stronger one. Here's an anecdote that left its mark on me. One day, after weeks of intense pain, I saw a new doctor. I told him about my morning stiffness, my exhaustion, how I couldn't even climb the stairs of my house without stopping. He listened carefully, looked at my test results and said, "We'll prescribe you a more powerful anti-inflammatory. It's expensive, but it will help you." I left that appointment with the prescription in hand, and the feeling that nobody was looking for the root cause. They were only giving me something to endure a bit longer. It was a neighbor, 80 years old, who said to me, "Have you checked your vitamin E? It changed my life." At first it seemed absurd. How could he, with no medical training, give me more useful advice than all the specialists I'd seen? But then I understood. He truly cared about my improvement. He had nothing to gain by telling me, no interest. He only wanted to share something that had worked for him. And I thought, how many older people keep suffering because nobody tells them about these solutions? How many are spending fortunes on medications when what they really need costs less than dining out? The answer hurt. That's why I make this video. Because if someone had told me this 5 years ago, I would have spared myself so much suffering, so much money, and so many sleepless nights from pain. I don't want the same to happen to you. You deserve to know there are alternatives. You deserve to know your body, understand what it needs, and make informed decisions. And if the system won't tell you, we're here to. Now that you know, there's no turning back. In the next part, I'll explain exactly how to take this vitamin, at what time of day, what precautions to observe, and how to maximize its benefits so you too can start noticing the changes. How to start taking it, a beginner's guide. After noticing the first changes in my body, I knew I had to learn how to use this vitamin properly. Because knowing it works isn't enough. You also need to know how to use it wisely, with common sense, and avoid mistakes. The first thing I did was go to the pharmacy. There I found a shelf loaded with options, capsules, drops, tablets, blends, and labels full of words I didn't understand. Alpha-tocopherol, IU, natural or synthetic. I felt a bit lost, so I went home and began to research. Here's what I discovered, so you don't have to go through the same process. The most important thing when buying vitamin E is to make sure the active ingredient is D-alpha-tocopherol. That's the natural form of the vitamin, far better absorbed by the body than the synthetic version, which appears as DL-alpha-tocopherol. The difference seems small, but believe me, the body notices. Where can you get it? Pharmacies, health food stores, supplement shops, or even online. You don't need a prescription, but I always recommend consulting a healthcare professional if you take other medications or have chronic conditions. Now let's talk about forms of consumption. The most common is soft gel capsules. They're easy to swallow and come in various strengths. There are also drops you can add to water or juice if you have difficulty swallowing pills. Some people prefer to get it from food, which helps, though sometimes it's not enough. Foods rich in vitamin E include nuts such as almonds, hazelnuts or walnuts, sunflower seeds, vegetable oils like olive or sunflower oil, spinach, broccoli and avocado. But here's the key part, the dose. For an older adult, a safe and effective dose usually ranges from 200 to 400 milligrams daily, although some people take less and still feel improvement. Some studies use up to 800, but that should be reviewed by a doctor, especially if you're on blood thinners, since vitamin E can have a mild effect on clotting. One important recommendation: don't start with a high dose right away. It's best to begin slowly, see how your body responds, and adjust over time. Remember, it's not about feeling a change in a single day, but about giving your body steady support. Also, vitamin E absorbs better when taken with a meal containing healthy fat. It doesn't have to be a heavy meal. A little avocado, a tablespoon of olive oil, or some nuts will do. If you take it on an empty stomach, you may waste part of its effect. Finally, keep these basic precautions in mind. Don't mix supplements without knowing how they interact. If you're on medications such as anticoagulants, consult first. If you experience stomach upset, reduce the dose or try a different brand. Above all, listen to your body. If you feel better, you're on the right track. This is not a race. It's a journey of small steps. Powerful combinations, what multiplies its effect. Taking the vitamin was the first step, but I soon discovered something that completely changed my results. There are habits that not only accompany, but multiply its effect. Small daily gestures that transform how this vitamin works in your body. I'll share them one by one because these are what truly accelerated my recovery. First, water. Yes, water. It may seem basic, but many older adults simply don't drink enough. And without water, the body can't function well. The vitamin you take needs to circulate and reach every cell, and that won't happen if you're dehydrated. I began drinking a large glass of water each morning before breakfast, then another mid-morning, one with lunch, and one more before dinner. You don't need to force down liters, just make sure you don't go hours without a sip. Over time, I noticed less stiffness and more agility. Second, gentle movement. There's no need to run or lift weights. At first, I only walked 10 minutes around my house. Then, once I felt the pain ease, I'd walk around the block. Some days, I even stretched a bit more. The important thing was to keep moving. Why does it work? Because movement boosts circulation, lubricates the joints, and helps the body absorb nutrients more efficiently. If you just take supplements but spend the whole day sitting, progress will be slower. But if you move a little every day, your body will respond. I guarantee it. Third, an anti-inflammatory diet. This took me a while to understand. I used to think eating well simply meant eating less. But I learned that some foods trigger inflammation without us realizing it. Processed meats, fried foods, industrial sweets, and white flour. You don't have to eliminate them all at once, but start reducing them. In their place, I added fresh vegetables, fish, legumes, fruits, nuts, and olive oil. Gradually, I noticed lighter digestion and less joint swelling. Fourth, sunlight. This was one of the simplest yet most powerful discoveries. Just 15 minutes of sun a day makes the vitamin even more effective. You don't need beach-level exposure. Just step onto a balcony, into a garden, or sit by an open window so natural light touches your skin. The body uses that light to turn nutrients into real energy. I felt it. Sitting in the sun while reading or listening to music, I started sleeping better and waking up more energized within days. And finally, what to avoid. Just as some things help, others hinder progress. Smoking, even occasionally, reduces vitamin absorption and harms joints. Excessive alcohol prevents proper use of nutrients. Chronic stress creates internal inflammation. If you can't eliminate it, find ways to reduce it. Soft music, deep breathing, walks outdoors. Some medications, like certain antacids or diuretics, can impair vitamin E absorption. That's why it's so important to consult your doctor if you take long-term drugs. The secret wasn't just the vitamin, it was everything I did around it. Drinking more water, moving even slowly, eating with intention, getting some sun each day, and treating my body like something to love again. When you do this, it's not just the pain or energy that improves, it changes your way of living. Real stories, other seniors who tried it too. Sometimes what we need most isn't medical advice or a complicated formula, but hearing someone like us say, "This happened to me too, and this helped." So I want to share some stories from real people, ordinary folks like you and me. People who had lost hope, and thanks to this vitamin, began to recover something even more precious than health, their will to live. Carmen, 76, Seville. I thought I'd never climb my stairs without gripping the banister. My knees creaked like old wood. But after 2 weeks taking the vitamin and walking a bit each morning, one day I realized I climbed without thinking, without pain. I cried with joy. I felt free again. Hector, 81, Mexico City. My hip was torture. I stopped going out with friends, even playing with my grandchildren. One day I watched the video and took it as a last resort. Today, 6 weeks later, I don't just walk. I walk fast. I don't feel young, but I feel alive. Aurora, 73, Rosario. In the mornings, I felt like my body was stone. I could barely stretch, move my fingers, even make breakfast. I started with drops of the vitamin, with no faith, honestly. But on the third day, I slept better. On the sixth, I opened a jar without pain. I thought, something is happening here. Louis, 79, Valencia. I was skeptical, always was. But after trying expensive pills that did nothing, I decided to give it a shot. I felt more energy on day 4. On day 7, I walked my dog like before. When I got home, my wife said, "You seem like a different man." Teresa, 82, Bogota. The best part wasn't just the pain leaving my fingers. It was being able to knit again. That was my passion, but I'd given it up because of arthritis. Today I finished a scarf for my granddaughter. That brought me back joy. Francis, 75, Lima. My grandson said, "Grandpa, want to play?" I always said no. I had back pain. Now after a month on the vitamin, we play every afternoon. It's not perfect, of course, but I'm present again. These aren't miracles or empty promises. They're real examples of how a small change can make a giant impact when done with consistency and faith. The most powerful thing isn't just what improves in the body, but what happens in the heart. You start doing things you thought were lost. You smile without pain. And that, dear friend, is worth more than any expensive medicine. Now I ask you, have you identified with any of these stories? Have you given up something you loved because of pain or exhaustion? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to read your story, know where you're watching from, and hear how you're navigating this stage of life. Sometimes sharing how we feel is the first step toward a great transformation. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Not everyone takes the time to listen, learn, and seek a different option, and that alone makes you someone special. Today we've talked about something many suffer in silence: constant joint pain, and that fatigue that seems to take over the body without warning. We discussed how after 60, the body changes, and not always for the better. Joints stiffen, collagen is lost, and exhaustion becomes the rule rather than the exception. Climbing stairs, opening a bottle, or simply standing up in the morning becomes a small daily challenge. We also walk the path of frustration. Pills that don't work, costly treatments, creams that promise the world and deliver nothing, and all that weighs on the body and the spirit. Then came something different. A simple, almost accidental discovery. A vitamin. One that, despite its low cost, proved something many forget. That sometimes what the body needs isn't more money or more pills, but the right nutrient at the right time. We saw how in just 7 days my body began to respond. Less pain, more mobility, more energy. And I'm not the only one. I showed you real stories of people who went from watching life through a window to walking through it again. So today I want to leave you with a very clear idea. You don't have to accept pain as an inevitable part of aging. You don't have to live resigned. You don't have to wake up each day thinking pain is your new normal. You have the right to feel better, to rise with energy, to enjoy without limits. That's why I propose something simple but powerful. Try it yourself. 7 days, just 7 days. Take this vitamin, follow the recommendations, and see how your body responds. Maybe you'll notice a slight change on day 3. Maybe day 6 will surprise you. Or you might need a bit more time. But if you don't start, you'll never know. I challenge you. Give it a week. Do it for yourself. Then come back here and tell me in the comments how you feel. Did you sleep better? Did you get up faster? Did that knee or hip pain lessen? And if you've already tried a vitamin that changed your life, I'd love to know which one and what you felt. Leave your experience below. Your testimony could help someone else today who's searching for a sign, a solution, a bit of hope. We build this channel together. One story, one message, one step at a time toward living with more health, more joy, more freedom. Thank you for being here, for caring for yourself. And remember, it's never too late to feel better. Never. See you in the next video. Take good care of yourself, and above all, keep moving and keep believing in yourself.